So I did a thing recently. I tried to make I made a little elf man, and I genuinely had more fun doing that. Dropped it almost. Had more fun doing this than I've had doing a lot of other projects, and I think it's just about how simple it is. Like, in just less than an hour, you can have a little sculpture that you can give to somebody, and it literally makes everyone I've shown smile, a giant cheesy smile. So yeah, I thought maybe I'd bring a Santa Claus into this sort of form factor and make it super easy so that literally anyone with a knife can do it. Yes, and if you'd like to see more videos like this one, including how I carved this little elf, check out the online carving school. It's in the link below. Thanks. Alright, so once again, I've got my knife here, my Helvie. And like I said, I think it's about an inch and 3/4. Let's see if I'm right on that. It's closer to an 1.5 inches, but 1.25 inches would work just fine. First thing I'm going to do is kind of clean it up a little, take some of the saw marks off, and take the edges off. So no real rhyme or reason just yet, just trying to make it a little bit nicer on the old grippage. Okay. Alright, take that corner off. It's got a breezy day, so if you hear anything noisy, that's why. It's coming from that wind. Alright, so that's done. First thing I want to do is start to think about the placement of the face on this piece. So I'm thinking about 2 inches down from the top of the piece. I'm going to mark a little line. And that line is just going to indicate the brim of the hat. And I don't want the brim of the hat to go straight across. That wouldn't be very natural. It's going to kind of come down. So I'm going to draw that like so, coming down. I'm going to take and carve a little notch for the brim of that hat. Just like so. Beautiful. And carry that all the way over. Just like so. Next thing I'm going to do is come down about, say, 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to carve the bottom of the nose. So that's 3/4 of an inch from the top of the hat down. And let's double check that. It's a little low. Mark that with a pencil. And again, it's not going to be a straight in cut. It's going to actually be a little bit of an angle cut. So I'm going to have the first stop cut here, like so. Got a little depth in there. And then I'm going to take it and angle it up a little, like so. So it's kind of like bird wings, right? Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is come in about 1/4 of an inch. I'm just going to guesstimate this from the top here. And that's going to be my brow ridge. So just above that nose is going to be my brow ridge. So I'm going to make a little groove like so. And doing a little stop and relief cut, like so. Beautiful. Alright, and we've already got a sort of profile, which is great. Next thing I'm going to do is kind of deal with the top of the hat here. Remove some material from the top, this block. Get some of the saw marks out and get the blockiness out. So I'm going to start with the center here. Notice my hands are always carving away from my fingies. I don't want to make any cuts that are compromising. And a note, you should always wear a carving glove in your non-dominant hand. So if you have a Kevlar carving glove, definitely use it, because you're a lot less likely to cut yourself that way. Alright, so I'm just sort of hawking off a bunch of material on this side here, the left side. Well, I guess his right side. And because I'm going to have his hat come down over here. So it's going to bend over from gravity. Pulling it. Alright. Okay, see how it's kind of bending over. And yeah, I can kind of take some of that triangle out of this shape here. Out of the hat, kind of round it out a bit. That's why it's important that that first cut that we make along the brim of the hat is nice and deep. That way we're not carving it out. Just like that. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. I'm just going to narrow this hat a little more. See, on the elf we had to worry about these big ears. And we don't have to worry about these on Santa. So we got a little bit of a bushier brim to his hat, but again, not as much of a big deal as those ears. Those are kind of a pain in the butt. I'm going to take a little bit off of this side too. I don't want it to be a square up here, so take the edge off. I'm going to have the ball of his hat hang down pretty low over here. And so I can make a little stop cut on either side of that just to indicate it from the side. And if you want a measurement on that, it's about 1.25 inches down from the top of the head is where I'm making that little, indentation there. And another one, about 1/2 inch down from that first triangle that I cut out. So you got this little situation here. All right. Beautiful. I'm going to take a bit more out of this area above the ball. That's good enough for now. Yeah, I might just take a tiny bit more off of the left side, or the side of his hat. Not a lot more satisfying than pushing a sharp knife through a piece of basswood. It's just there's like a tactile sensation that you get out of it that is so delightful. Ooh. It's my best attempt at a Jeff Goldblum accent. Anyway, I'm going to take this line all the way down to the edge here and make a stop cut at the base of the hat. I should say, if you want to learn some really great tips on carving figures like this is not really my foray, or my forte. I mean, this is my foray into doing this. Obviously, you're going to want to check out Doug, and if you're watching this, you probably already have checked out Doug Linker. But if you haven't, he does a great job of breaking down these kind of figures, like these little basswood figures, and I believe he did a Santa Claus that you can go check out there as well. Anyway, this is my brim hat of the hat. Again, it kind of carries down low, and I'm going to narrow the hat just a little bit more. It's a little wide. It's a little wide for my taste. And take the sharp edges off of the brim. Notice a lot of the work is just trying to get the blockiness out of it, just trying to make sure and get those corners cut down. A lot of that's corner cutting. Cutting corners There's a good thing in wood carving. Okay, like that. Alright, that's looking great. Now I'm going to think about the mustache. And the mustache tends to come just about a full inch from the brim of the hat. At least that's where the bottom of the opening is. And when I say the opening, I mean where the mouth is. And you'll see what I mean in just a second. So I'm going to say about an inch down from here. And a little V. So kind of going the opposite way that the nose went V. I V'd up here, down. And I'm going to take a little chunk out of this. I'm going to go in, and then here, and just cut that out. Like so. See how that little piece came out? What we're doing is we're creating the left and right bars of the mustache. And Santa's got a good mustache. Like so. Alright. Beautiful. Okay. Well, we got that in. We got a lot of the kind of road markers here that we need. I think it's time we take some of the bulk out of this beard here and give him a little movement. Alright, so one kind of element of design is to have one side positive shape and then one side negative, and creates a little movement. So if this side's got kind of a hollow in it because of that ball, I'm going to leave this side round. I'm going to cut a little bit more out of this side to give it more of a scooped kind of windblown look. So I'm going to take a little bit more out of here. Like so. And see how I did that? Create a little scoop out of here and then a bump here. And that's going to make him kind of flow nicely. And I'll just keep taking away some material from the bottom. Alright, so now I'm coming down. You can see I just defined the top of the mustache. Came along the side of the nose. I've got about a ½ inch between these two cuts here and here. But I'm going to make a little plunge, about a ½ inch apart, on either side of the nostril. Just a little nip out of this bottom of the nose, see? Coming straight in, like so. Not going too high up with that knife, not going up into that eye brow ridge area, but just a little bit, maybe an 1/8 inch high from the corner of the nose up, and just taking a little triangle out of there. Alright, and same thing on this side. A little chunk out of here. How about that? Starting to shape up, isn't he? Alright. I'm going to shorten his nose just a little bit. Santa's got a little bit cuter of a nose than his little elf does. His elf buddy has got kind of a big bulky nose that drops down here at the ball. Santa's going to be a little cuter. Hate to say it, sorry elf. I'm going to extend this mustache down a bit. And take a little bit of material away from this mustache and beard area as well. And you know, if we want to, we can even start creating some little grooves for the beard. And when I say little, I guess I don't mean little. You don't want to start with little grooves because then you might have to carve them off. Start with your big shapes first, right? So in other words, I can break this beard up a little by cutting some chunks in it. Like so. Just a little groove in there to break things up. And I'll do a few more, but I'll try not to keep them too even and too much of a pattern, because that's not a good thing. Okay, little grooves in there. And say we'll take a chunk out of here. Just like that. As Bob Ross would say, just like that. Okay. Now I don't want there to be any flat spots here on the beard. It's just not kind of it's not natural. You wouldn't see that in nature, a perfectly flat part on the beard, unless maybe he had a bad hair day, or maybe he slept on his beard and woke up and never fixed it. So he has a beard head, or bed beard. Bedbeard the pirate. Alright, so that line that we made earlier, remember this one? Along the side of the nose to kind of define the top of the mustache. Well, at the bottom of that line, I want to draw another one. It goes up, makes kind of a little V here, and the same thing over here. I try to make these even with each other, so I'm looking at both sides as I'm drawing them. That looks about right. Whoa, got a little thick there, but I'm going to take a little bit out of here. Like so. And the same thing over here. Take a little bit out of this back area where this new line that we just made meets the brim of the hat. And I can actually narrow up his face a little bit. So I'll do it on both sides. So a little stop cut here on that line that we just made. Stop cut at the hat. And then going straight in. Just removing an eighth or so of material. And if it doesn't come free, it means you didn't go deep enough on those stop cuts. So come back in. And see that? I narrowed his face up a bit. Good. Do the same thing to this one. Start up here, over here, and just like that. Yeah, I have to say I've been watching Doug Linker do these for years now, and I've just enjoyed it. I've enjoyed seeing it, but what I didn't realize is it's just as much fun or more fun to do it. I mean, it's so satisfying just to take a few little cuts here and there and to start seeing something come to life. It's just whimsical, and it's fairly straightforward. Some of these are, and that's what makes them so much fun. So much fun. So now I'm just kind of taking this hat and creating a little groove here to separate the this little part of the hat that hangs down. So I'm just taking a little wedge out of there like that. See that? Okay. Hopefully you can see with the light reflecting off it. Beautiful. Okay. And yeah, I can round this ball a little bit. Alright. Okay, just got that little ball nice and shaped. Take a little bit more out of this little separation here. Alright, getting happier with that. One thing about the forehead is you got little planes here, you got 3 planes. You got this center plane here, and you got these 2 little offshoots, right? So you got this one right there, you got this one, and then you got this one. So I want to make sure that those are represented here. So I got the 1, Got 2. And generally these are going to be similarly sized. Santa might have a little bit more of a square forehead, so this center one might be a little bit wider. But that's the idea. Okay. Alright. I'm going to get some of the this saw mark out of the, excuse the focus, a little bit more of the saw marks out of this beard and get the shape right. So I'm going to extend the line of the mustache down. And that mustache tends to sit on top of the beard. So I want to make sure that I've got the beard down a bit and that the mustache is sitting on top of it. So I'll make that cut here and then just take a little bit out behind it. And the same thing here. How about that? Now I might just taper the mustache, I'm sorry, the beard to the cheek a little. I don't want it to be such a stark difference. Excuse me. Because that beard's growing out of his face. So that's good. A little bit more of that brow ridge. Alright. Okay. I'm going to take the edges off of that mustache, kind of round it a little bit more. It's a little angular right now. And I can go a little deeper even with that V cut underneath the mustache, meeting the beard. Now we might not even have to play with his mouth. He's got a long mustache, and I think that's covering a good part of the mouth. And we're trying to keep this as simple as possible, make it so that anyone can do it. And that's the goal with this, you know. I mean, not every carving has to be photorealistic, you know, ultra crazy detailed. This is just something that you can do in your car. As Doug will say, you know, you can do it in your car while you're waiting for your wife in Target. I've never done that, but I think that's a good idea. I imagine many of you have done carvings in public. I know there's some old carvers I used to hang out with who'd carve in the restaurant while they're waiting for their food, and then they leave the carving for the waitress or the waiter. I think that is just such a sweet idea. So again, I'm just kind of rounding out this mustache a little bit, just taking some material out and making sure it's not too flat anywhere on his mustache, just taking some of that material away. Okay. Just trying to get that focus on the camera all right. Okay. And I might even continue this line up of the mustache up to his nose. Not cutting too deep up there, just a little tiny bit, just to show that it's separate. But that is still bushy. You know, you want it to be bushy underneath that nose. Okay. Cool. Yeah, he's starting to look pretty good. You know, I might just deal with some of the bigger shapes first before I get anywhere on the face and start to create this hat here, the kind of the little band, the fluffy band. And it's just going to go parallel to the hat that we got, this line that we got for the hat here. So I just drew it all the way across, and I'll just make a cut and relief. And if you want, you can just come right through and make your stop cut first, and then take little sections out at a time, like that. The main thing is don't try to take off too much at once, because you'll end up cutting yourself or making your wife have to get involved, you know what I mean, get you to the hospital, get stitches, and I've been there too many times. It's not worth it. You don't want to get your wife or your husband or your kids involved when they don't have to be, you know, just they were having a good day before you had to go and jam yourself with one of your nicest carving knives, right? You don't have to do that. So just take your time on this. Taking the edges off. I'm liking that. That's looking good. That's looking good. All right. Again, just taking that saw blade off of there. Awesome. I'm happy with that. Pretty good, pretty good. Alright, alright. So. I'm going to start dealing with the face a little bit. I want to take a little bit of a scoop out of the side of his nose, right? Because I want to start getting into that cheek. So I just went in there. I just took a little scoop up to that brow ridge. Okay? Same thing I'll show you on this side in slow motion. Ready? Scoop. Right? Just like that. Luckily, I've got a really advanced editing team that can slow stuff down for me like that. So I'm sure they did it. I'm not sure how it turned out, but knowing them, it's perfect. That's what happens when you make it to the big leagues. You have a whole team of people that edit your videos. And just by saying speed up or slow down, they can do whatever you ask. It's really nice. So, anyway, I've got this taken down on either side. And now I want to do a little cool cut that I don't know if you've ever seen before, but it's something that you see in chip carving a lot, and it's kind of a triangle cut. I'll show you what that means. So in the corner of this eye, right, where this bridge of the nose meets the brow ridge, I'm going to take a little triangle out. So I'm going to come in here, a little triangle here. I don't want this to be too big of a cut, just kind of a little guy. Okay. And I just removed it out. I'll try it again on this side so you can see what I'm talking about. A little cut in here. Kind of go deep in the inside corner there. You got the second part of the triangle. It comes up kind of into the kind of line of the brow ridge. So like up here, like so. So you got one here, boom. One here, boom. Go straight in. And then you're going to go off to the side here and like that. And just take a little bit out. See that little chunk that just came out? Maybe I'll make that cut again, just so you can see. It's nice and deep. And scoop out. See what that does is that's starting to get the mound of the eye started, right? So you want that eyeball to be a mound, not a concave little indentation. I might just take the edge out of the eyebrow a little bit. Like so. Great. Now, this guy's going to be happy, so his eyebrows are going to be a little bit softer, a little bit taller, because he's more relaxed. So he's not all tensed up, these muscles up here, so we're going to smooth them out, make them smooth and chill. So that's why I'm making this angle of the brow ridge a little bit less pointy. Taking the edge off, the corners off, just like that. Okay? Now I want to shorten the nose up just a little bit more. So I'm coming down below and just giving him a little bit of a cuter button nose, because he's Santa. Okay, rounding that off. I might even take a little bit out of the profile if I look at it from the profile. I'll take a little scoop out of that side. Have it turned up a little bit. If you understand what I'm saying. See how that kind of turns up a little? Kind of like a fairy does with their nose. And that's going to give them kind of like a little bit of a cutesy German nose, right? Take a little bit more off the sides of that nose. Alright. Okay. Very good. Yeah, that's good. Speaking of the German nose, that's good. Alright, so now, remember this line that we carved here for the kind of top of the mustache? Well, just above that, I want to draw a line that's almost parallel to it. Right? But then it curves up as it moves out, up into the corner of the eye here. So it's just kind of a half circle under the eye. And the same thing under here. Okay? Couple little lines. This one's a little low. Can clean that up a little. There we go. See what I'm talking about there? Well, I'm going to go in with the knife over that line. Like so. And just take a little chunk out. Okay? And this is going to start to give us the ball of the eye. Right? Same thing over here. We've got that round ball we're trying to create. So we're going to go in, straight in with the knife, following that little half circle that we made under the brow ridge. And come in. And just take a little line out of that. Okay. This is probably the hardest part of the whole carving, is getting these little delicate cuts. Following that line and then taking that little stop out. Not taking a lot of wood out of here, just a little bit. And you can see from the side what that looks like. Now he's starting to look like something, huh? Old Sandy's coming to life. Santa boy. Good to see you, buddy. Okay, let's not get too cocky just yet. But let's also not get discouraged, you know, if it doesn't look exactly like mine. Nothing to fear. So we want this cut that we just made, this little U underneath the eye, to be nice and deep because, well, when you're happy, your smile will push the cheeks up real high. And so this line will get deeper, more pronounced. So I'm going to go back over it, get it nice and deep. So now that we got these bags under the eyes cut in, I'm going to start to create a little bit of a stop cut at the outside corner of the eyes. In the same way that I created a little stop cut on the inside corner, I can create a little groove similar to the one that I created in here with a triangular cut. So just a little kind of pyramid. Talked about it earlier as the kind of like a chip carving cut. Just like that. Same thing on this side, I'll show you again. Cut 1, 2, 3. Take that little chip out. And what you're doing there is you're kind of narrowing the eyeball a little bit. And just making it nice and round. I'll go in there and narrow it a little bit more, just taking a touch of material away, just a fairy's wing of width. Okay, come on this side, same thing here, little stop cut, cut up to it, removing just a bit of the outside of the eye. Alright, see how that's kind of getting a little bit rounder there? Very good. Okay. Now I think we're about ready to play with the nose. A quick thing about the nose. This line that we already created that makes up the mustache also happens to be a part of the frown line, right? Or the happy line, or the smile line. And the happier you are, the more angled this line gets. It comes out this way, right? Because when you smile, it pushes your cheeks up. And so this line gets higher. So I'm going to cut this line back just a little bit and make it a little bit deeper right under here to push that cheek, to make the cheek appear as though it's kind of pushed up from his smile. So I'm just taking a little bit more out from under here. And again, look how it kind of makes him look happier. Very good. Okay, so next I'm going to play with the nostril. Now the nostril is a little bit tricky. Really what you're looking to do is create a little bit of a half circle here for the nostril. So there's a bit of a turn of the wrist, and I like to rest my dominant hand on the piece as my pinky is kind of grounding into the piece itself, the base. I'm using the knife blade to create a circle, a little bit of a cut circle in here, like so. Like that. See, I'm coming into the side of the piece, so I'm effectively from the front it would look like I'm going in, cutting that circle. And then I'll come in from the side, making sure we're in focus, and just cut a little chunk out of there. And you see, just like that, we've got our nostril. Isn't that cool? See how we don't have it on this side quite as much, but now I've got a little bit more definition. And let's do it again, this side. I would just fast forward through this part, but I think it's helpful to see it twice. Okay, little tiny turn, circle, and relieve that. See how that just comes right out? Now I'm not taking a whole lot of material away here. I'm really making a tiny little cut. It's important that when I'm coming in with the knife, I'm not turning it in like so. I don't want to undercut this nose and take the knife and make those cuts in and dig out the nostril. I'm going straight in with that relief cut, cutting a little pyramid out of that inside corner there. See how that's shaping up? And we'll clean this up as well, just like so. And we can come back in and clean up that nostril a little. Beautiful. Excuse my reach. And take the hard edges off of the nose. A little bit of a ridge there for the brow. And man, that is just shaping up quite nicely, that little nose. Alright, moving on to the eyes. I'm going to take the knife and use it to carve the upper lids. Now because he's happy, his brow is going to be high, and so his eyelids are going to sit a little lower on this mound. And it's going to be nice and open though. So I'm going to carve a hood like a little almond, right? So this is the top of the almond, just going straight in, and then I'll kind of cut to that line. Just a little bit of pressure. If your knife is sharp, it shouldn't require a lot. You get a nice cut there. Coming up to that line, just a tiny bit of material removed. And you can see that is looking a-okay. Alright, same thing on this side. And try not to get too far without going to the other side. Harder to remember what you did. Like so. And don't beat yourself up. It's not a perfect twin to the other side. Think of it more like a cousin or maybe a stepsister. Maybe not a stepsister. Maybe like a brother, not an identical twin. They're related and they kind of look alike, but man, it's a lot of pressure to put on yourself to make them exactly the same. But it helps to make one cut at a time on each side. So line on this side, line on this side, and then come back through and just remove a little bit of material from the ball below the line that you just carved up to that point. Keeping it pretty flat though. I don't want to carve in this line very much. I want to keep this mound sticking out, so I'm just taking a flat cut from the bottom of that line. Okay. Feeling pretty good about that. Okay. Now I'm going to cut the lower lid in. And the lower lid is going to come under here. This is the bottom part of that almond we talked about. See that? And before I get too carried away, I'm going to do it to this side as well. Now one thing you can do is if you have a hard time matching one side to the other, so you can take your pencil and draw both sides in. Get those nice and proportional first, and then as soon as you're happy with those drawings, you can come in and cut those pencil lines in. Alright. Alright, now from here I'm going to cut down to that line. So now I'm really cutting the little almond into the mound here. So that means I'm carving on the surface of the almond and pushing it in. So I'm carving on the inside of these little lines that I just cut. Alright. Very neat how just a few little cuts and you've started to allude to an eye mound. It's all about just getting that mound, those inside and outside cuts so that the eye kind of rounds over. It's really important. Alright. Now this is super easy and fun if you're just kind of out and about and you've got yourself a little bit of time and a knife. I imagine, you know, as I mentioned before, you could do even something like this really quick in probably an hour or so. I've had a lot of practice at carving, so if it takes you longer than that, definitely don't be hard on yourself. It's something that takes practice, but the more you get the hang of it, the more comfortable you get with your tools. And my gosh, it is so fun and rewarding to just be able to take a piece of wood and whittle something cute like this. Give it to your wife, give it to your kid. I don't have any kids just yet, but I'm excited to give them something like this, that's for sure. When I do have them, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, as the great Hank Williams would say. Alright, so he's looking pretty good. He's looking a little solemn. One thing I can do is make his lower lids a little less bulky. Take a little bit out of those. Make him look like he's got a little bit more squint to him. There. Sometimes when the bags look a little too long, it makes the cheek look shorter. So if we push the cheek up, the bags appear shorter because they're compressed by the pressure of the turn of the cheek. And so that's kind of why that made a difference. Just taking a little bit out from that lower lid kind of makes it look a little bit more happy. Kind of funny some of the things that you do to make a carving look better. You wouldn't expect it always. Okay. I'm going to take a little cut out of the corners of the eyes to make these kind of crow's feet, which again, if you're smiling, you're going to compress this cheek area. These cheeks get pushed up. Well, that's how these folds appear. These little creases, these little wrinkles. And so I'm going to carve those in. And just do a couple of them. Maybe 3. I guess that's more than a couple then, isn't it? He's a happy boy. Okay. Hopefully we're in focus there. I don't want these to be too deep to distract from his face, but I do want him to have some happy look to him. Alright. So now it's about time that we kind of take a look at the nose. I want to take a little chunk in between the nostril flare here and the tip of the nose, right in between there. Oftentimes you're going to see a little chunk coming out right here, right in between those two little sections from that profile, just like that. Boom. Little scooping motion. You have to have a sharp knife to do this. Boop, boop. Alright. Very good. Let's see if I can get a little bit of a closer look so you can see what I've got going on here. Okay? Yeah. He's looking pretty good. I want to take a tiny bit more out of his cheek area, underneath his cheek at least, to get this line a little bit less straight. Because, you know, unless Santa's got a really great barber, you know, one of those really high-end barbers, I doubt he's going to have a perfect, straight, clean line across his cheek, right? He's kind of he's a busy guy, especially right around this time of year. It's a couple days away from December. Santa's got things to do, people to see, places to be. He doesn't have time for a perfect, straightened, cleaned up beard. So we're going to give him a little bit of a jagged seam as it meets the, just as it meets the face. See how that is? There's the focus. It's being a little wonky on me. There it is. Okay. All right. Take a little bit out of this inside corner of the eye. And, yeah, he's looking good. Quite happy with that. All right. Give him a little scrape, clean those little hairs off of him. And I say, now, we start to think a little bit about this beard situation. We've got a lot of material to work with, and we want to create some texture. And the way that I do that is I just take my V-tool. I say my V-tool, but what I mean to say is my knife, and I just take a little cut. And I start with these kind of bigger cuts. I say little, I meant like a kind of a relatively decent sized cuts to make the kind of pieciness of the hair, right? So these kind of larger cuts, like so. And then I come back in and I make a few smaller ones to give them some detail. Right, the big thing here is you do not want to get carried away and make too many little lines that are all parallel to each other, because then what you'll end up with is a carving that looks a little bit just kind of like straw. You know, I see that a lot, people with the straw hair, and that's okay if that's what you're going for, but I like to just create a few little grooves, keep it simple. You know, even the great sculptures of the you know, you look at the great sculptures of medieval, the Middle Ages, and great Renaissance artists, and you know, just not a lot of detail in the hair. Oftentimes you see a beautiful form, and that's what's important, is just getting the shape in. And you know, well, this is not your average Michelangelo. At least it's got some you know, something there that shows people that you know what you're doing. Right, but nothing to stress you out, just enjoying it. A couple little grooves, like so. A little chunk come out of there, and just like that, making these nice little rough edges. And so that hair is starting to get some flow to it. Trying to keep them cuts a little bit curved, not super stick straight. A lot of it just comes down to learning how to hold your knife and making sure that you're holding it the right way. Alright, I'm going to take the hard edge off of this hat. It's got a little bit of an angle to it that doesn't need to be there. There aren't any sharp angles on his hat. Okay. Alright, getting really close, guys. I would say just a few final things before you get to painting him. I would take a little groove or a little crease fold out of the hat to make it look kind of wrinkled, as though it's kind of folded over. I think that's a good look. I like things in 3, so I might put 3 creases in there. And then I also like to put a little scoop, a little bit of a scoop in his hat from the way it's just kind of sitting. You know, nothing too crazy, just a little scoop. Sometimes the grainier wood doesn't behave well enough for a scoop, but if you got a piece that can handle it, you might turn it around if it doesn't like the scooping action that you're doing. Okay. In fact, I might even just take a little bit more out of here, like so. And just like that, I mean, you've got yourself a pretty decent little representation of a Santa. I mean, how much fun is that? It really is. Let's carve the eyes. The eyes kind of have it, and it's a super easy way of carving the eyes. I just take the knife and carve a little circle, a little half circle, nice and deep, and then I just flick that out like so. Right? And then the same thing on this side. And again, they're more brothers than they are perfect twins, of course. With the eyes, it's a little tough. It's really helpful to draw them in first, because of course it does matter a little more that they look in the same direction, right? And but yeah, I just try and keep them somewhere in the right area. Okay. And that kind of makes him look like he's looking, and sometimes I'll go deep right in the middle of that little dish that I carved out for the pupil. Darken that up, and that almost makes him look like he's kind of looking out. He's peering out there. I love that look. That's great. Alright. I'm going to take a little bit more out of the corner of the eye. Alright. I'm liking that a lot. Okay guys, we're getting really close to the final hour here. And final hour, by that I don't mean another hour. I just mean we're almost done. Okay, so a little trim of the side of the face. And you know, one thing you can do that makes his hat stand out and look really slick is take a little bit of an undercut right from his face and just make it kind of separate from his hat. I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'll take my knife and I'll take a little section out of here. Just a little tiny section. Doesn't need to be a lot of material, really not much at all. Just to create a shadow, right? Because we don't want his head and his hat to be exactly the same. Like blend into each other, right? I want them to look separate. So that's where I just come in and I just clean that up. Alright. A little relief cut there. And that's that. I mean, just so simple to make his hat almost appear as though it's completely a separate piece of wood from his hair and his head. And kind of blend those parts. I really like this kind of faceted look when you take the knife and you make lots of little cuts to kind of round things out. When you go to paint this, that will just look so neat when you don't have these kind of big flat kind of areas. You have these little kind of cut sections. Makes it look beautiful, hand carved. And you could go in here with, if you had any fancier tools like a gouge, and really get this band all textured nicely and make it all beautiful. But we're just going to keep this super simple. We want you to be able to do this if you have a knife and no other tools. Okay. I mean, that is just so fun. Come on. You know, got yourself a really nice little simple Santa. I'm going to give him a little hair, a little eyebrow hair. Just almost scratch it in. I do not want to be too aggressive with that. Because, you know, we'll make up for it with the paint. We'll give him a little paint job as well. So I'm almost just scratching it in, right? Not the way I would normally do eyebrows on a super realistic carving if I was doing something, you know, uber realistic and artsy, but that's not what this is. This is just a fun little ornament, and you can just scratch up some hair. If you want to take a little bit of meat out in between, there's my Dougism. If you want to take a little bit of meat out in between the eyebrow, that's cool. Make his eyebrow stand out, but really it's not about realism here. It's just about getting that little guy to come to life and to enjoy the process, not to stress yourself out too much. Okay. So, you know, if you're not having fun anymore, set it down, take a break, pick it back up a little later. Alright, how fun. I might just spend a couple minutes on here just cleaning out the little saw marks on my own off camera, but yeah, I'll seal her up and then I'll show you a really, just a couple minute long paint job. Really simple paint technique for this guy. Alright, so I'm just going to clean him up a little and we'll just brush him with a tiny bit of paint and call him a day. Alright, so just a quick thing on nostrils. We're going to do just a little half circle here. Which, nothing too crazy, but sort of like we did the pupils here. Just a little half circle. Okay, so not too much of a big swoop. Don't want to overdo it. Just a little kind of turn of the tool. See, I'm turning. Cut those little nostrils in. Now, if you're really kind of starting out, maybe this is your first ever carving project, you might want to start with a little bit larger of a piece of wood, maybe a 6-inch piece of wood, and then just scale up the dimensions I mentioned earlier, because it's a lot harder to carve a small thing than it is a big thing. Small things people think are less work, but that makes all of your details so much more challenging, because then everything is kind of more nuanced and amplified, and it's just a whole different thing. So if this is uncomfortable for you, I do recommend maybe scaling it up a little bit. That might be worth your while. Alright, and we take a little bit more out of the inside corner of the eye, just like so. But I'm liking the way he's looking. Just taking a little bit out of the cheek there. Push that cheek up nice and high. And that is a wrap as far as the carving goes. Alright, so I'm going to give it a light coat of shellac or sanding sealer. Either one works. And I just have the glove on to keep my hands from getting too sticky. I don't want to go too heavy with this because I want it to look natural. I'm using just a 2-inch chip brush. And it's best to do this in a ventilated environment if you're doing a non-water-based product like this. It is recommended a water-based product if you are using this stuff indoors, but polyurethane would work. Anything just to seal the pores of the wood and make it so that when the carving is painted, it doesn't leach into the the wrong parts of the carving. So you might paint the hat green, and then the whole face turns green because the grain will suck it in. So you got to seal it up before you paint on it. It really makes a big difference. You're going to want to soak that end grain nice and heavy, and then you can put it in somewhere next to a fan or something, and yeah, call it a day. Let that dry, and come back as soon as it's dry. We'll do a little painting. Alright, so now that we've got a dry lacquer, or in this case I guess it really isn't lacquer, it's a sanding sealer. I'm going to take a little touch of the white paint and I'm going to thin it down. I'm using an oil-based paint. An acrylic watered down would work just as well. This just happens to be what I have. I'm just going to take a little bit of white paint and I'm going to start to paint the beard. Now I don't want this to be too thick. I want it to show the grain through, and so I might even towel off any excess that we have. There we go. And I don't want it to be too heavy, right? So if you can see the grain, that's better. I don't want to kind of create a big old thick thing of paint. That's not what I'm after. I want him to look like he's hand carved. I want your grandkids to be able to see this and say, wow, look at this. This must have been from the 1800s. I'm going to trick them all. You know, man, I didn't know, Grandpa Alec was in the Civil War. I wonder which side he was on. You know what I mean? That sort of thing. They won't ask which side. They'll know which side I was on, the right side. The look of this is really nice. And, if you want to get a little heavier with the white after the fact, I find that the first base coat being a little bit kind of light, it's contrary to how you do an oil painting. Usually a thick paint is your base, and then your thin paint is what you put over it. But I just like to put a tiny bit of white on there, and then I'll come back in with a little bit thicker, a little bit more of a pigmented paint, a little bit more paint in there. And then I'll kind of just hit the high points, right? Just the points that I want to really accentuate. Like so. This is going to be a little bit more of a rusty red. Now I'm going on there with my my rusty red. I just love the way that looks. And the oils have a really nice translucency to them that you can definitely get some nice tone and color out of acrylics too. So don't get me wrong. I'm not judging anything. I might just avoid that ball and do that little ball on his hat with white. And you can see I'm being sloppy. It doesn't have to be perfect. I hit the brim of the hat a little bit. I can kind of wipe it if it gets a little too red. But when we go over it with our white, it won't be too bad. It won't be too visible. I'm going to take a bit of paper towel and just really gently, you could use a paper towel or a cloth, really anything, just to wipe off the high parts on there, just to give it that kind of antique look. I love that look. Now you don't want to press too hard, otherwise you'll start to remove all the finish and that'll kind of defeat the whole purpose of it. But you just want to get those high points, kind of create that antique-y look. And I absolutely love that. Almost looks like it's burnished. And you can repeat the process if you end up wiping away too much. But I just love that real light touch of color. And really, we could have gone right back into that white, right from that beard and done the cap. But because we didn't, we're going to grab an extra brush and go in there and do that hat. Get in that brim. Get a little bit more thinner in there. It's a little thick. Too thick of a paint. There we go. Oh, much better. Alright. Now you can get away with going a little bit whiter just to create a little contrast on this brim. I still wouldn't go quite solid on it, but I would give it a little more contrast, a little bit more pigmentation there. But something very similar. You really could just do the same thing and it wouldn't be an issue. But you can see what I mean. I can cover a multitude of sins if I went a little too far. And even if a little bit of that pink mixes in, it's really not the end of the world. Definitely worse things could happen. But, it's just absolutely wonderful little simple piece that you can do as a Christmas ornament for some family. It takes you about an hour, maybe a little more if you're not used to it. And you've got yourself a really cute little treasured ornament that your family will hold on to. Who knows, maybe for generations. I'm going to do just a little bit of an insinuation of eyebrows, hair there. I don't want to get carried away here. A little bit of eyebrow hair. I got some paint on my hands. I don't want it to get on the carving. That's kind of a trick, if you can avoid it. There we go. Bumped his nose. Alright, a little bit of white paint on that. Yep. Yeah, looking good. And doesn't have to be perfect. Just touching it lightly. And you can even dab some excess off. You know, just so it doesn't look too blocked in. And look at that. Again, take your towel or your paper towel and just dab a little bit of that excess off, and you've got a really nice little Santa. I might touch up a little bit extra white on that beard just to make it pop a little bit more with that kind of dry brushing technique. Yeah, look at that. Pop. Yeah, why not? We'll get carried away. We'll do the brim of the hat again too. Cover up a little bit of that pink. That's looking great. And just like that, you got a really nice finished piece. You can put a little rosy cheek on them if you want. You know, you can just add a touch, a teeny tiny touch of your pink. If you got a little red, you can do that as well, just for giggles. I'll just add a touch, ever so slightly. And I'll immediately blot off the excess there, just a hint, right? Because Santa, you know, he often has a little rosy cheek, doesn't he? And there's nothing wrong with that. He's out there in the cold. Of course he does. Of course he has a little rosy cheek. I mean, just so thin, right? We just want it to be so thin. We're not going for rosacea Santa. We're going for out in the cold weather Santa. And just like that, a little hint of pink brings his skin to life. Look at that, like old world kind of looking Santa. Hope you guys enjoyed. I had a lot of fun with this one, and we'll see you in the next one. If you want to see another project like this, how I carved the elf, and a whole bunch of other fun little projects on the school, click the link below, and that'll show you a lot more of the projects that I'm doing on fundamentals of wood carving. So hopefully you enjoy, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.